You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Edition of the Minor League Baseball podcast is here, and I have to open by asking Sam a question. Sam sends out the show rundowns every week and has clever ways of reminding me which episode number it is. This week it says, quote, "This podcast is now 100 episodes past getting its permit." Did you have to be 16 to get your permit in Massachusetts?
Yes.
I was 15.
Really?
Yeah.
Like not even 15 and a half?
No, just straight up 15.
Oh,
because I took driver's ed at 14.
Really?
Yeah.
See, we had to get our permit, and then we got our. Then we went through driver's ed.
Wow. Like I was able to get mine at 15 because I had taken driver's ed already.
That's probably the smart way of doing things, to be honest with you. Not instead of just handing out a permit and saying, "Well,
here's a permit. Go learn on the roads."
Yeah, go on the roads and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, that seems safe. So it is episode number 116, the age at which... Wait, so when did you get your license?
16 and a half.
Oh, okay. I was 16, so we're just cooler out here.
I know.
Speaking of being cooler out here, Benjamin Hill is out here, kind of. Ben is in the Mountain Time Zone. He's in the Pioneer League and the Pacific Coast League. We'll talk to Ben from Utah here coming up in just a little bit. This week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, as always, you can find on iTunes and on the Stitcher app, and now on Google Play. We're very excited about that. So thanks to all of you who tuned in wherever you found us, and... you know, it's good to be on a different format. I'm sure we sound great on Google Play.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Obviously.
Yeah, of course. It's the same audio quality, I think. I don't know. I honestly don't know enough about Google. I want to say, like, yeah, it's got great. I don't know.
We sound like geniuses.
I don't have a.
You sound more authoritative on Google Play, presumably.
Sure. Let's go with that. I would love to hear a sound just like here and just, much more confident in ourselves on Google than we do on iTunes.
AA Binghamton Rumble Ponies manager Luis Rojas will join the show later on. Sam got a chance to catch up with him in Hartford this week, correct?
I did. I went up there with Michael Lieboff, our colleague and co-worker who we both went up there to cover Brendan Rodgers' home debut in Hartford. So, got Luis for a couple minutes, and I'll intro that as we get closer to it.
So, episode number 116 off and running, and a big thanks to you for tuning in. If you found us wherever you found us, give us a rating and a review and a subscription, and we would be much obliged. You can get in touch with the podcast at MILB.com. Sam's on Twitter at Sam Dykstra, MILB, and I'm on Twitter at Tyler Mon, and let's get started. News from the world of minor league baseball teams and leagues and relocations this week. As of last week, this from our own Danny Wild at MILB.com. Quote, "The minor league landscape will look a little different in 2019 after an ownership group announced plans to relocate 3 teams on Wednesday. The AA San Antonio Missions will pack up and leave for Amarillo, Texas, as part of the Elmore Group's move to shift several of its clubs in 3 states. The AAA Colorado Springs will move into San Antonio, and the rookie-level Helena Brewers will take their place in Colorado Springs. This flurry of moves was announced after the Elmore Group finalized plans for a new $45.5 million ballpark in downtown Amarillo. This will mark the first time an affiliated club has called Amarillo home since 1982. San Antonio, there's also been a lot of discussion about a new ballpark there. Colorado Springs has a ballpark. It's an older facility that has hosted AAA baseball since the late 80s. That city will now be a rookie-level city, and Helena, Montana will be without affiliated ball. Sam, your initial reaction to this news?
I always felt like San Antonio was a little bit bigger than a AA city, to be honest with you. So hearing it get the bump, this is something that's kind of been rumored for a few years now at the very least. Just as you were talking, Tyler, I looked up what the populations are for San Antonio and for Colorado Springs. San Antonio, according to this, which who knows if it's how accurate it is on Google right now, but 1.4 million people live in San Antonio. Compare that to 445,000 in Colorado Springs. So in terms of just status, this kind of ticks a box here. In terms of just seeing San Antonio there, one other thing I wanted to look up was, Colorado Springs has been here, as long as I've been here. So I do think of it as a AAA city, and I wanted to see what the what the attendance was for the Sky Sox this year. They currently rank last in average attendance in the Pacific Coast League, averaging 3,902 fans as of this recording. Omaha is second to last in the PCL with 4,500. So even amongst PCL clubs, even between the bottom rung and the second to bottom rung, there's still a sizable chunk there. So for an ownership group that's looking to get into a good market that's ready for AAA baseball, that has established itself as a really good AA market, moving to San Antonio makes sense there. It is unfortunate to see Springs knocked from AAA all the way down to rookie level, and to see Helena taken out of the equation completely. I'll be really interested to see how Amarillo kind of works itself out. I know of it as a big Texas city. I don't know exactly what the baseball scene is there. Generally, it's more exciting when the new team moves in, and hopefully that continues for the team there. But it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out in that market. So a lot of dominoes falling here, and we can talk about it more as details come out. And it's more fun to talk about new teams, and I get that. Seeing how San Antonio is going to play out as a AAA city, whether it's truly worth it. To be honest with you, San Antonio is big enough. It might even be in that conversation for Major League expansion, but I don't think that there's any serious talk about that, and that's many years down the line if it ever comes. But again, unfortunate to see two solid teams that we've been following for a while, either eliminated completely or downsized. But we'll have plenty to talk about this offseason in terms of rebranding and what the new stadiums are going to look like and all of that.
These teams will not be on the move until after the 2018 season, and the eventual plan is to secure funding for a new ballpark in San Antonio. Wolf Stadium, which currently hosts the AA San Antonio Missions, can hold 9,200 fans, but the plan is eventually you'll get a new park there. You'll have a new park in Amarillo. Colorado Springs is going to be still sticking with Security Service Field, which is kind of an interesting situation because the Elmore Group has thrown out some various reasons for this move, one of them being the altitude, although you're going to have a rookie-level team that's going to be playing in the same altitude, so that kind of doesn't really seem to hold that much water. Economically, this is a move that's going to make a lot more money for an ownership group, and ownership groups are businesses. I mean, that's what this ultimately comes down to. The city of Colorado Springs had an opportunity, and we talk about this a lot when it comes to teams that move. There was an opportunity to change this, and we had this discussion a lot with Bakersfield. There were a whole lot of different plans to get a new ballpark put in Bakersfield that never came to fruition, and that's why that team ended up leaving and shifting over to the Carolina League. For Colorado Springs, about 4 years ago, there was a proposal from a group to build a new district in kind of a blighted area of Colorado Springs called the City of Champions, which would have been sort of a tourism area. It would have been a multi-sport arena, a baseball stadium, and and United States Olympic Museum. The United States Olympic Committee is headquartered in Colorado Springs. That was never even put up for a public vote. Colorado Springs is a very conservative area. There wasn't a whole lot of movement to put public funding behind something like that. The backers of that venture then redesigned the stadium aspect of it to make that a multi-sport type of facility as well. There's a successful soccer team in Colorado Springs, the Colorado Springs Switchbacks. It could have been part of that as well, but it just never in any way came to fruition. There was no economic momentum behind it, and that left the Sky Sox as a AAA team in a ballpark that wasn't drawing and is very outdated, and, oh, by the way, had seen the departure of its only parent club since the inception of the Major League team 70 miles up the road, switched to another affiliate. The Colorado Rockies left after the 2014 season to switch their affiliation to AAA Albuquerque. Better ballpark, much better facility, draw better, all that type of stuff. So for Colorado Springs, this has sort of been in the tea leaves for a while, but I still think somewhat justifiably people in Colorado Springs feel betrayed by this. There is a story from the Colorado Springs Gazette as recently as April 13th in which the Sky Sox were having work done on Security Service Field. The lead is workers at Security Service Field replaced about 250 light fixtures hanging above the stadium on Thursday. In the coming months, a revamp of the scoreboard will be completed for roughly $700,000. That will bring high definition screen nearly 4 times larger than its current size. The Sky Sox are saying they intend to stay in the city, and the $1 million they're pouring into that venue near Barnes & Powers would seem to back that claim. And then a quote from General Manager Tony Enzer, "We're building for a long future in Colorado Springs." So I think people are upset about this. That may just be a well-couched and very caged phrase that means they're building for a long future. It just happens to be in the Pioneer League. But, ultimately what this comes down to is new ballpark in Amarillo, an aim for a new ballpark in San Antonio. And for the Helena team, comparatively, they're moving into a better facility in Colorado Springs. It's just that, there is a city that's going to be left out of the minor league mix. Helena will no longer have a team, and so that's a bummer for people there. And for people in Colorado Springs, now you get half the games you're used to every summer. So it's just change, and change is a bummer for people who are really invested in these teams. But, there were opportunities for this to not be the case, and unfortunately for these markets, that's not the way it goes for Helena losing a team for Colorado Springs taking in a short season team.
Yeah, for sure. What I'm interested too is just what it's going to be like. Like you mentioned, these aren't going into effect, until after next season, I think, right? So what is next season going to be like in these places? Is there going to be this great big outpouring of support to try to send off Helena or send off the Sky Sox as a AAA team, or is it going to be, we all see the end of the road here, and people aren't going to show up? I don't know how that's going to kind of work itself out. The reason these announcements need to be made now is to get things set up, to get things moving on stadiums and whatnot. But yeah, what next year is going to be fascinating.
City of Amarillo is really excited. There is a note in Danny's story from last Wednesday that Amarillo Mayor Ginger Nelson said, quote, "This is a win for Amarillo, and as a city, we're thirsty for a win. This gives us something to be unified behind and something to have fun doing together. It'll be a quality of life addition to our city and region." And that kind of sounds like a lot of bureaucratic speak, but look at what happened in El Paso. I mean, El Paso was a city without a minor league team for a long time, and you think about ballparks and teams and how much impact do they really have. That has been an economic catalyst and has been kind of a city spirit catalyst in El Paso. That's maybe the most successful relocation story that we've heard in the last decade plus in minor league baseball. So Amarillo, you hope you can capitalize on that momentum when you're a city that's welcoming in a new team. Amarillo did host a minor league team from 1939 to 1982. They were primarily known as the Amarillo Gold Sox, and they played at Potter County Memorial Stadium. So this will be 35, 37 years by the time this new team takes up its residence in Amarillo, and that city seems like it is very excited to be welcoming in the newest member, I guess a changed member of the Texas League, and so that's an exciting chapter for the city of Amarillo.
Yeah, just if you're going to bring up El Paso, and I think that's a great example of how this kind of works. El Paso, I threw out attendance numbers before. El Paso is currently third in the PCL in attendance, averaging 7,700 fans. So, what they established a couple of years ago when the Chihuahuas first moved in, we're still riding that momentum, I think, from that new park. So these things do have effects at the very beginning. Various things play out as the seasons go along, but these can be big moves for new cities.
So that's the latest from the minor league relocation shuffle, which comes up early in 2017. We don't ordinarily hear about this stuff until kind of after seasons have gone past, but it gives one other final note about this. It does give these two cities in Colorado Springs and in Helena ample time for fans to go out and take part in the ballpark, take part in the being able to see minor league players at various levels or all together. We've seen over the last few seasons teams middle of the year announce, okay, this is it, we're done after the season. Bakersfield and High Desert last year come to mind. And then all of a sudden, if you're a fan in that region and you've got a month to go see a team and you can't make it work, that's kind of a bummer. So at least there is that silver lining for fans in Helena and in Colorado Springs. Strike two this week, Sam. The AAA All-Star Game is set for Tacoma, Washington, and we have rosters for the International League and the Pacific Coast League, highlighted by a whole lot of talented prospects. Yoan Moncada has been elected to the All-Star Game on the International League side. Willie Adames will join him in the middle infield for the International League. Those are just two of the really exciting names on that side. The Pacific Coast League, also a very exciting member of the middle infield there. Ahmed Rosario of the Las Vegas 51s, the New York Mets organization, has been selected. Who stands out to you on these two AAA rosters?
Yeah, so All-Star games are completely different animals than kind of your normal All-Star or just your normal roster. You know, I like to look at All-Star games and I like to think about, like, which roster would I prefer? And I think looking at these rosters as they stand right now, I think I might like the IL a little more. You know, you mentioned Moncada and Adames in the middle infield. They'll probably be starting together. They were both elected to the team rather than selected, which just means, you know, there's the voting process and where fans chip in, managers chip in, the media chips in, all that kind of stuff. Those two guys were elected with votes to the second base and shortstop. So that's a fascinating double play combination. But off the bench, guys who were selected were three other top 100 prospects in Jorge Alfaro, Gwinnett second baseman Ozzie Albies, Louisville outfielder Jesse Winker. The Bash brothers will be there, and Reese Hoskins and Dylan Cousins. Both of those guys should be starting after some powerful performances for Lehigh Valley. Zach Granite is just fascinating in the Rochester outfield. I remember when I was doing a tool shed on what my AAA All-Star ballot would look like, he technically was not qualified or didn't have enough at-bats to qualify for the major slash line categories. Since then, he has gotten enough at-bats, and he's hitting 371. No other qualified IL batter is hitting higher than 316, and that is Jesse Winker. So a lot of really interesting bats here, but why I bring up that All-Star games are different animals is because I really like the IL lineup. I think I like the PCL pitching more. And in spurts when you're trying to get so many pitchers in, a lot of them are relievers, guys who are coming in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning, only pitching one inning. They can go at it with their best stuff. They don't have to worry about carrying things over. That's why you see, especially lately, a lot of low-scoring All-Star games. Pitchers just trying to throw it as hard as they can, really go at guys, get aggressive, that whole thing. So looking at the PCL pitching staff, Luke Weaver is the top 100 representative there, you know, pitching out of AAA Memphis. But Wilmer Font of Oklahoma City currently leads the minors in strikeouts. He struck out 112 batters in 80 1/3 innings at AAA Oklahoma City. This was a guy who didn't have that much experience at the AAA level before this season. Is certainly getting it now. You know, he had some stints with the Rangers a couple of years ago here and there, mostly pitched out of the bullpen, moved to starting this year, is showing absolutely terrific swing and miss stuff. I think he has a chance to be that PCL starter, get them 3 solid innings. It would almost remind me of, you know, how many strikeouts can he get? You know, which is what we think about when we were watching Clayton Kershaw in an All-Star game, or how I used to think about watching Pedro Martinez in an All-Star game. Wilmer Font could be that for the PCL. So as good as this IL lineup is, I think the arms in the PCL just have a chance to be so much more dominant. Drew Steckenrider is a really, really good reliever coming out of New Orleans. A lot of other names on that list. So we'll see how things play out in Tacoma. Trying to predict one game can be tough. And, you know, if this was 162 games, I might tell you take the IL lineup just because it's so solid, both starting and coming off the bench. But for one game, just with the arms that they have, I'm leaning towards the PCL now. Maybe I'll change my mind the night before if some other changes get made, but that's my feeling right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's right on. I also like that this is being hosted by a Pacific Coast League ballpark this year, but it's the most pitcher-friendly Pacific Coast League ballpark in Tacoma, and so it's not, you know, El Paso a couple years ago, or you know, even a ballpark like Las Vegas, theoretically, where we're expecting to see a 15-11 type of game. I'm excited to see the way that these pitchers will match up with really, really potent potent lineups. The middle infield on that International League side is really exciting. Yoan Moncada and Willy Adames, the top prospects in the Chicago White Sox and Tampa Bay Rays organizations, respectively. That's really exciting. But there's a lot of depth and a lot of guys who really kind of stand out on the backside of this International League team that are exciting to me. Guys like Jorge Alfaro, who was selected to the team, not elected to the team. But some other names that you've kind of forgotten about. Rusney Castillo is on that roster from the Pawtucket Red Sox, a guy who made a whole boatload of money coming out of Cuba with the Boston Red Sox organization. Hasn't quite lived up to that contract yet, but is having a pretty good year this year. Lucas Sims, who I think people have kind of forgotten about in the Atlanta Braves organization, but still has a very bright future ahead of him if he can harness everything. The AAA All-Star Game, it's a big honor because you're being selected to a roster that is some of the best players at the highest level of minor league baseball. It's also, you'd rather be, being a guy who's even riding a bench on a major league roster than being somebody who's playing in the AAA All-Star Game. But I think it provides an opportunity for guys to get one of those little twinges sometimes that you need to take that next step. You get put in a spot like that, you're around the best of the best at your level, and you think, you know what, I'm good enough to be doing this at the next level. And sometimes those carrots throughout the course of a season are really big motivators for production in the second half. I mean, we saw Brendan Rodgers, who we talked to last week on the podcast, Josh Jackson talked to at the California League All-Star Game. The Rockies left him at Class A Advanced so he could have that experience before he was promoted. We've seen other guys with that same type of route where you have them play and dominate a level, and then you let them have that honor where they get selected to something like this, and then you hope that the second half benefits from it. So I think that's really cool. But I agree with Sam on the other side. The lineup on this PCL side is really exciting. Carson Kelly is a guy we've talked to who has a very complete approach to the game, the catcher from the St. Louis Cardinals organization who's put together a really good year. What kind of surprises me is that this team isn't just entirely comprised of Colorado Springs Sky Sox and Fresno Grizzlies, because it feels like we write about them every single night lately to a certain extent, with Lewis Brinson and Brett Phillips and Ryan Cordell and all these guys at Colorado Springs. And then with Colin Moran and with Tyler White and with Derek Fisher and all these guys in Fresno. Not to say that those people aren't represented with Fresno and Colorado Springs having their selections, but man, there are a ton of fun bats, and it shows you how many there are in this organization, in those organizations and others, that the PCL roster is lined with so many guys from so many other systems.
Yeah, I really do have to say about these rosters too is that they are legitimately stocked with talent. Like, this is not us just talking up two rosters that kind of get, they are what they are, so we have to talk them up because they're there. They are legitimately talented. I think IL has 5 top 100 prospects. I haven't counted up the PCL side, but when you got Ahmed Rosario and Luke Weaver and Carson Kelly and Derek Fisher, there's plenty of talent there as well. And I think that speaks to as well the fact that this is a game that features 2 leagues. It's not as watered down as some of the All-Star games, some of the other All-Star games that are kind of just one league. Not that that's anything wrong with that. It's more fun to see, some of these levels, AA, Class A Advanced, there's only 3 leagues. You can't, unless you're doing an All-Star round robin or something, you can't make that work. So that's why they have intra-league All-Star games. But when you're able to take all of the talent from one league and all of the talent from another, that's how you get these really, really, star-laden rosters. And to see the big names like Moncada, like Alfaro, Albies, Winker, Hoskins, Cousins, on the IL side, Rosario, on the PCL side, actually perform as well as they have and legitimately get their shot. Like you said, Tyler, I'm sure they would have loved to have legitimately gotten their shot at the majors by this point. But, the fact that they're being rewarded with a trip to Tacoma, they're not going to feel bad about that.
And Cheney Stadium in Tacoma is awesome as well. Wednesday, July 12th at Cheney Stadium. By the way, that game will be nationally televised on MLB Network. Paul Severino will be on the call. I know Jim Cowles is going to be one of the color analysts for that broadcast, so you can check that out on MLB Network, July 12th. 2017. All right, Sam, strike 3 this week. We talked about the Brewers in a couple of different contexts. Parent club to a team in Colorado Springs in our first segment today, and also the team in Helena, oddly enough. Second segment, a lot of talent on that roster headed to the AAA All-Star Game. And in segment number 3, we're going to compare that organization with another one that looks very similar. Over the last few weeks, we've seen the first place Milwaukee Brewers call a lot of their top talent to the major leagues. Josh Hader got his major league call-up, the first one of his career. Lewis Brinson the same way. Brett Phillips the same way. These names that we've been watching for a long time in that organization finally get their look at the major league level. Brandon Woodruff, friend of the podcast as well. The Oakland Athletics have started to go that way as well. And really, it feels like it's been about the last 10 days or so, but we've seen so many names jump to the big leagues from this talented AAA Nashville roster. Franklin Barreto is up there, Jacob Brugman, Matt Olson, Ryan Healy, all these guys that we've talked about throughout the early going of this season, and calling them all up simultaneously. It's really similar to what the Brewers did. Some of those guys are back in AAA now, but I had a conversation a couple of nights ago with Rick Sweet, who's the manager of the AAA Colorado Springs Sky Sox, and asked him, what does it do for these guys when they all get up to get a taste of that together? Even if they're not necessarily all ready right now, they're all up there and experiencing it at the same time. And he said what it does is, if they don't have a lot of success, in the case of somebody like Lewis Brinson, went up, struggled a little bit in his major league debut, when they get back to Colorado Springs, it makes them hungry to get back there because they've had that taste of what it's like in the major leagues. And not only that, but it shows them what they need to do and what they need to accomplish to get to the big leagues and stick. And the A's seem to be very much in that same mode right now with all of these guys who are up in Oakland. Maybe they're not going to stay there. Maybe we'll see them back in Nashville relatively soon, but it doesn't seem like they'll be there for long. It's cool to see the way that organizations have really been very trusting of prospects in this regard.
Yeah, for sure. And the situations are obviously a little different. The Brewers are very much in that NL Central race. I think they lead the Cubs by right now 1 game. So, nobody would have seen that at the beginning of the year, but when they decided they needed help, in their outfield, they had a couple of roster spots where they needed help in the bullpen with Hader, or they needed help in the rotation with Woodruff. They were just like, you know what, we're going to go for it. This is us. We know we have the talent at the AAA level. Let's use it now. Let's try to make something of this run that we have and this opportunity that we have. The A's aren't quite the same way. They're currently 16 and a half games out in the AL West, but as everybody kind of knows, that the American League this year is still pretty much wide open in a way that the National League is very much not. Everybody's within striking distance relatively of that second AL wild card spot. So the A's are not punting by any means by bringing these guys up, but what they are doing is trying to see what they have. I thought they were going to bring up Franklin Barreto, who's by far and away probably their top prospect. I thought they were going to bring him up maybe after the trade deadline because Jed Lowry has been pretty well established in the middle of their infield this year. Having a really solid season. He's got an OPS plus this year of 127. Looks like perfect trade bait for that Oakland team. And whenever he got traded out, Barreto slides in pretty well there. But they decided to do it even earlier. So they bring up Barreto, give him some time at second base. Before that, they brought up Matt Chapman, who is currently on the DL with a very unfortunate knee infection. But he was another guy, a friend of the podcast, who was absolutely destroying the baseball in Nashville. He had 16 homers in 49 games, got to carry that to the majors. It's unfortunate the stumbles he's had, but at least they were willing to give him a shot. And the third base job is probably his again when he gets back and healthy. Matt Olson, kind of fun to see him get a spot. He's been their go-to right fielder to these first couple games, showing normal Matt Olson things in Oakland. He's homered twice in 11 games, so showing a decent amount of pop, but he's also struck out 12 times and walked 7 times, so that 3 true outcome stuff that he's always shown at the other levels is still there. And they're just feeling it out. Maybe these guys are the talent that they need to push to the next level. Maybe, they claw their way back within 5 games or so of the AL wild card, and they earn a chance to go for it, try to keep Lowry in the second half. Or maybe they're just getting experience right now. They're like you said, getting that taste at the major league level, knowing what it takes to get there, knowing what it takes to succeed there. So even if they do get sent back down to Nashville, it's with specific instructions. I was made vulnerable in this way. What do I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen when I get that call again? So it's really fascinating. I think it works well with these two systems, with the Brewers and the A's, just because they are so top heavy in terms of the talent. A lot of their best prospects were at AAA to begin with. That makes it so much easier in ways that we aren't necessarily talking about with other systems. Maybe the Yankees are maybe the next team to do that. They brought up Tyler Wade this week, a really good speedster in the middle infield. We know that they have other names there as well, as in Clint Frazier, and Justice Sheffield is getting better, and Chance Adams looks like he's ready to break through for a major league debut. So it is semi-rare to have this much talent at AAA, but when you have it, it's been real fun to see teams dip into it when they need it and not just saying, no, you'll wait your turn. Even surprising us with how quickly they're bringing up these guys.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You get exposed at the major league level to a certain extent if you are most guys. If you're Cody Bellinger, maybe you don't. But that's what players have to learn, have to look out for, and have to understand when they get back to the minor leagues is it's the last step, and it's the most difficult step for a reason. And if I'm able to absorb the things that teams were able to exploit about me at the major league level, that's what I need to work on. That's what I need to conquer at AAA, and then I can go back and hopefully it'll be the start of a long and productive major league career. But it's really cool that all of these guys are able to get these opportunities at the same time, and so many of these different organizations that are testing these players all at the major league level, even if it's, in the A's circumstance in that division right now, it's one thing. The Brewers are a first place team. They've been leading that division the majority of the year, and they're not the best team in the National League right now, but the fact that they're willing to do it really speaks a lot to the faith they have in those players as well. So it's pretty cool, and we've talked about it a lot. Just the fact that major league organizations seem to have so much trust in young prospects who have moved quickly through the minor leagues now than maybe they would have 10 years ago. But it's really fun. It's really exciting, especially for those of us on the prospect side, to watch guys go up, get a chance, head back to the minor leagues in some circumstances, and try to finish off those last few things that you have to polish away at AAA. That'll do it for this week's edition of Three Strikes on episode number 116 of the Show Before the Show podcast. And coming up, we're going to head to the AA Binghamton Rumble Ponies, where we will hear from the head man of that squad, a talented team this year in the New York Mets organization. Luis Rojas will join the show to talk about AA Binghamton and more coming up next.
So as Tyler just explained, I was up in Hartford on Monday to do a couple things, mostly to see Brendan Rodgers' debut, or home debut with AA Hartford. But while I was there, I wanted to catch up with somebody on the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, and Luis Rojas, their manager, was a perfect candidate. For those of you who don't know, Rojas is the son of famed manager Felipe Alou, patriarch of the Alou family. So we talked a little bit about that, what it's like to kind of come from, that family tree, but also what exactly is Rojas's managing style. I feel like that's not something we get to talk about too much in terms of, how do you manage at certain levels. He's hit up pretty much every level in the Met system, from the GCL to, back when their Class A affiliate was with Savannah, on through Class A Advanced St. Lucie, and now with Binghamton. And then we touched on a couple of names that you'll hear about in a couple minutes, all of whom are now Eastern League All-Stars. So it was a really, really fun interview, a really fun talk with Luis Rojas in Hartford, and here it begins right now.
Yeah, so one thing I'm kind of interested in talking to you about is just climbing the ladder as a manager. This being your first AA year, what is the biggest adjustment as you go up the chain, going between different levels?
For me, it's just more, it keeps the baseball experience building up. The difference between this and, the previous league that I was in, which is the Florida State League,
right,
is the National League games. So you run into that, and you run into the pitcher hitting, the double switches strategy, and, having the depth in your bench, and having guys to learn to play different positions too, once they get here, because that's what's we're kind of like doing right now. We have guys playing, infielders playing the three positions, on the left side. We have guys that in the outfield that have been playing first. We have a catcher here that plays that plays first, second and left, also a little bit of third. So that's just kind of like the difference that I've seen from the past level to this one. And then, before that, it's just the experience of the players. You see a little bit more polished player, because of the couple of years they already spent in their system with different organizations, and it's just the repetitions that they've been getting in games, for the other leagues.
Right.
It makes them, polished. So you kind of like see that a little bit. It's not, necessarily like a big change or a big, from one level to another, but you see a little bit more of guys making the routine plays and the game kind of like moving, more fluidly. Mm-hmm. But there's not much like Big 2 that I really experienced myself.
Mm-hmm. And how much does it kind of help, having come up the system yourself with some of these guys, having coached some of them at St. Lucie last year, going through that with them at the same time? It's a new level for all of you.
It helps a lot because they know me, they know my personality, they know the way I expect things to be, and it makes things a lot easier. It just takes a chunk of time of that process and trying to maybe learn your coach, learn your manager, and what the expectations are, and so it helps a lot. Having more than 50% of the group already play for you before, it's just makes the whole team click a little bit more because players start communicating between them and letting each other know what kind of manager, how the manager reacts or expects out of each individual in there. And then of course there's always that communication between the coach, manager, and player. But then having the experience of being around me before, it just takes a lot of that time that we could probably spend knowing each other and kind of like getting acclimated to being together for the first time.
Mm-hmm. And when we were talking before about this being your first time here, do you guys get like a scouting report on how a park is going to play before you get in it?
Well, we don't get it. We actually go and dig in and look for how it plays, and we of course see the scores, and it calls attention, and you also hear it from other teams.
Right.
You know other teams' players and managers, and you ask the questions: how's the park and how's everything? We always got very good reviews on how this park, talking about this park specifically here in Hartford, how this park plays and how beautiful it was, and so you get here and you're surprised of the great job that they did to build the new ballpark, but you already know because you've heard of how the ballpark plays, and that you already go also to see how the stats play here as well, and it kind of like helps you a little bit on what to expect, and maybe also to make a decision during the game about it.
Mm-hmm. And just to go back to managing and coming up that way, how would you kind of describe your managing style and how it's evolved as you go up?
Well, it's definitely it keeps growing up. It keeps maturing. As the years go by, and as the games that I'm a part of go by, and but it's really tough to describe this, at least from my end. Really tough to describe a manager's style or something, and it's usually what you get as a team is what it's going to dictate on how you're going to run your team. If you get a fast team, you're going to be an aggressive manager. You're going to run. You get a team that has power and can swing it, you probably be a little bit more patient and let the guys swing it a little bit. And it's the same thing with what kind of starting pitching you have and what kind of depth in the relief that you have. Lefty righties, if you can do mashup, if you can do a lot of different things during the game. So this obviously of what the product, of what the kind of players you have, that on my end dictates on what kind of manager you're going to be for that team that you have in that particular season. So that's kind of like what I go. If I study with the team I have, I study my product, and of course we study the opposing teams, and we bring up a strategy each time.
What was the biggest piece of advice you got from your dad, either when you were starting or throughout the years since?
I gotten so much, but I think one of the things that I've learned the most from my dad is really the patience, and be able to really have a good reason behind every decision that's made out there, and make sure I anticipate, about as many steps ahead as I can be in a situation, from watching, from having conversations. That's probably one of the things that I picked up that helped me the most in my coaching, managing career. Out of him, always being there, always being able to bring up the baseball conversations and different situations. Conversations, that I can always get something from his experience, and I can compare it from my own experience as well, and come up with something. I think it's helped me in a lot of different ways, and it's tough to come up with a single one. It's just so many, but the patience and just being able to anticipate way ahead because of how many surprises, how many failures this game can bring to you. I think that's probably the best thing that I've learned from.
How much or how often are you guys talking baseball?
Well, every time we are on the phone or every time we meet in person, we talk baseball. I mean, we work in different organizations where we're trying to beat each other, as an organization and in the big leagues. But we always debate on just different scenarios, on different things that happens in baseball. And I manage winter ball as well, and we always bring up different situations. And I don't get second guess or anything, by him with all the experience, managing experience that he has. But rather than that, I do get advices or if he was in a similar situation, what he did, which is a normal conversation between managers. I think not only had to be dad and son, but manager to manager type of conversation. So we're pretty often on the phone, and the baseball conversation is always on.
And just to turn to players, Luis Guillorme, I feel like I've seen so many defensive highlights of his, but what makes him such a strong defender of the middle, whether it's at second or short?
Well, besides his, I think his ability to read opposing hitters. He's got a really good baseball IQ instinct, and he always positions himself well. He's paying attention to those little things that are not so little, of the game, and that makes him, always puts him in a good position to make plays. And then his confidence level is just off the chart. He's a kid that plays with extreme confidence. He's always, ready to make a play, ready to help the team, out there on the defensive end, even regardless of how it's going for him on the offensive end. So I think his focus is always elevated, either playing short, second, and when he tries third base too, because we're going to try him at third.
Okay.
At one point, we need to get him there to get him the experience, because he's going to be that guy that can play all three positions on the left side of the infield and be very valuable, in the team. So I think his focus level is always high, and he's a guy that's always going to give his 100%, regardless on how he's doing on the plate.
And how is he kind of taken to being kind of behind Rosario, kind of in the depth chart, being one level below him, but it's primary position being shortstop? How does that kind of play out?
Well, that's a conversation we'd never had, and I never heard him talk about it either. He's been teammates of Rosario. He played second where Rosario was playing short last year in San Lucie for me, and it was never a subject that we had about it. He always went the same way he goes about his business this year, even though he was playing next to Rosario last year. So I don't think it's something that is really affects him on how he plays, or he knows that he can control. So it's really something that doesn't come up at all.
Okay. And tonight's starter with Conlon, he seems to be a guy who can just eat up innings for you guys. I think he has 2 shutouts on the year. What makes him so effective from the left side, given his size, I think he's below 6 feet? How does he make that work for him?
Well, he's a strike thrower, and he's not afraid to challenge any hitter with his fastball, despite having a plus changeup. Not afraid to use his changeup in any count, and he's a guy that's he pitches to get action. He pitches to get you out in 3 or less pitches. So he's got a lot of pitchability. That's why he earned the award of Pitcher of the Year last year in the organization, and that's why he's been able to go deep into games. He's got a lot of innings already in this season. It's just how effective he is commanding all his pitches, and how eager he is of getting you out via contact. He's being able to strike out a lot of guys. Is to getting ahead and getting into a count, and he's being a lot better getting that put out pitch, bouncing the ball, and being able to get the guys out. And I think he's up in the strikeout leaderboard, maybe the first top 5 or something, which is surprising, because he's a guy that goes deep into the game, like you said, and a guy that strike out a lot of people don't really get into the 7 inning or 6, but he does have 2 shutouts, and he's been able to keep his pitch count down, and being able to get outs early in counts as well.
And the last guy I want to touch on was Tomas Nido. He cut down his strikeout rate last year with you guys. I think won the FSL batting championship.
Yeah.
What adjustments did he make last year, and how have those carried over into this year, do you think?
Well, last year he had a rough beginning of the season in Florida State League. He was basically not having a good start because of the strike zone discipline. He wasn't very disciplined at the plate. He was chasing a lot of pitches, and that was something that we got together as a coaching staff and sat him down and talked about it. And listen, if you don't really trim, the strike zone, and you focus on the pitches that you need to look for that are going to, make you drive the ball better, then you're going to be in trouble. I mean, he's got the ability to put the bat in the ball. I mean, really, really good ability to do that. And he could be out in one pitch by chasing a ball and making contact, put it in play, but it would be a weak contact, run into an out. So we told him that, listen, you got to trim the strike zone. You got to look for pitches that you can drive, and anything else, just let it go. And he was so good at doing that from later in May to the end of the season, he really bumped his average up, to win the Florida State League batting title. And now this year, at the beginning, he had kind of like the same start, and we have a similar talk, and he bumped that up back again. But right now, we're still working on it. I mean, he's in another league where pitchers are earn their way to be in this league because they command pitches better, and if they see him chase, they're gonna make him chase more and more. So we're working on making him more consistent on staying with his approach, so he gets back on track where we want.
And I'll leave you with this one. What's it like being the Rumble Ponies manager? What's the reaction been the first couple months to being the Rumble Ponies?
Well, it's been actually a pleasure to work for this ownership and the new brand. So a lot of good things, a lot of new things are happening, and the guys are excited for all the gear. And sometimes we hear people trying to make fun of the names, but there's some history behind the name, and we respect it so much, and it has to do with our ownership as well. So everyone here is proud to be wearing the uni and carrying the name and the brand.
Yeah.
To the Pioneer League / Pacific Coast League / Mountain Time Zone we go, where we find Benjamin Hill, who is on the road, which is a familiar tag to the end of Ben's name once we get to these points of the minor league season. Hi, Ben. Where are you?
Hi, guys. Hi, Tyler. Hi, Sam. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, the home of the Bees. I will be seeing the Salt Lake City Bees tonight, and I'm talking to you here on Tuesday? Wednesday, right? Wait, what day is it, guys?
Wednesday. It is Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay.
It's
right.
Wednesday in the East Coast.
Wednesday.
I don't know what it is in your fancy mountain time zone.
It's actually next year.
Yeah, who knows? Talk to Tyler.
It's 2018.
Yeah, it's like 2019 or something. Yeah. It's crazy. So it's Wednesday, and I saw the Ogden Raptors last night and drove into Salt Lake after the game, and so I'm spending the last 3 nights of this trip in Salt Lake seeing the Bees tonight. And the Bees of the AAA Pacific Coast League, that's the only non-Pioneer League team I'm seeing. And then tomorrow I'll close things out with the Orem Owls and then fly back home on Friday. So this whole trip, when it's all said and done, will be 8 teams, 7 in the Pioneer League, 1 in the Pacific Coast League, and missing the teams in Colorado, which we've talked about in the past. And, as we've also talked about, the goal is to avoid Tyler Vaughn at all costs. He's kind of got a toxic energy I'm trying to stay away from.
Oh, I wouldn't disagree with that. Ben, tell us about the stop so far. You've been in – the thing that I love when you check out bensbiz.mlblogs.com is that you see a lot of blue skies, a lot of cloudless blue skies. So the weather has obviously cooperated throughout the Pioneer League so far, but you've been to Billings, Great Falls, Helena, Missoula, Idaho Falls, Ogden. Give us a rundown of what it's been like in kind of one of the quieter leagues on the minor league landscape.
Definitely one of the quieter leagues. I would suggest that general managers of the Pioneer League have a seminar this offseason about how to respond to emails better, because it's been a little tough, just coordinating with the teams and all that. But that said, I love getting here. This is the Pioneer League is the last league I've yet to set foot in. This will be the last trip I ever take, here in the world of affiliated baseball, where every single stop is new, a place I haven't been. So it's been really interesting. I flew into Billings, and kind of worked my way through Montana and then into Idaho, now Utah. And you're right, the weather has cooperated fully. Knock on wood. I got 2 more games left. They call it Big Sky Country in Montana, and that is very, very apt. There were, several times I would pull off at a scenic lookout point or even a rest stop and just look around me and be like, oh my goodness, it's just beautiful. Some of this Lewis and Clark territory, known historically for their trip and establishing new territory for our great United States. So a lot of it is along the route that they have that they first traversed, and just gorgeous woods and sky and plains and just a sense of openness that coming from New York City and growing up in Pennsylvania, that is just kind of foreign to me. So it's great to be out here.
Yeah, my question was going to be, Ben, you said you made it to the Snake River. So did you actually ford the river, or did you caulk it and decide to float across?
Oh!
No, I ended up waiting for conditions. Yeah, you didn't see
Oregon
my tweet,
Trail.
but I ended up waiting for conditions to. Yeah, I ended up waiting for conditions to improve.
See, well,
I just took the slow route, and there was no Indian guide to barter.
What's the dysentery
with,
situation?
So that's what you did on your day off.
There was. I don't think they had this. During the Oregon Trail days, but I was right by a Buffalo Wild Wings on the Snake River, and I don't think the pioneers had that luxury. So actually, while deciding what to do, how to get across the Snake River, I actually went to a
would have made a lot
Wings.
easier for the pioneers had the buffaloes actually had wings back then, and then you wouldn't have had to ford any rivers.
Well, they went extinct. That's another thing that
buffalo.
we kind of have on our American conscience is we killed all the flying
That's
buffalo,
true.
but it lives on with Buffalo Wild Wings. And I did get a half lemon pepper and half hot wings. And while I debated how to cross the Snake River.
I was going to say, I think there were some winged buffalo in the game I played growing up, but I think that was just bad graphics on my elementary school computers. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, Ben, was your on-the-road piece about the Great Falls historian Jim Eakland. Pioneer League teams, I don't usually think of as teams with these deeper histories or something like that, but this team has a historian. So we'll take us through your conversation, your story with him.
Right. Well, Great Falls, the Voyagers, the second stop on my trip, that was one of my favorite stops so far. They're just a team that from my, New York City base of operations, I just haven't had much occasion to cover them from the larger top-down, industry perspective. So going there, I didn't really know what to expect. Got a great response from the team, and I showed up, and it's an old stadium, Centene Stadium, an old stadium that's been around for a while. It presents some operational challenges. It has had some renovations over the last decade plus to, make it more amenable to today's game. But I just didn't know what to expect. So I show up. I talk to the GM, Scott Reasoner, really nice guy, and he says, "Hey, you're going to want to talk to Jim." And there's Jim, this octogenarian in a blue Hawaiian shirt, and he's just like, "Let's do it." And all of a sudden, 5 minutes from entering the ballpark, I'm in Jim Eakland's, curated baseball museum that he has on the second level of the stadium. And the history of baseball in Great Falls goes back to 1892, which I did not know. And their Pioneer League history goes back decades, and there were some gaps in it here and there. But he has this room full of team photos, win-loss records, rosters, memorabilia, everything from old scoreboard numbers to seat cushions to pennants to pocket schedules. And it's a small room, but it's really well curated. And I talked to Jim for quite a while and did an article on him. And, he just it's great. His whole thing was, I retired in 1991, and he was widowed or became a widower a short time after. And he said, my mother always said to me, when you're retired, you need something to do every day. And so for him, that became identifying every player on the year-by-year Great Falls minor league baseball team photos. And his collection and his work through that led to the creation of this Hall of Fame room. And now here at the stadium, any fan, it's open an hour before game time, can stop in and learn a lot about the history and talk to Jim, and just one of those cool minor league quirks and cool minor league personalities that really help bring a ballpark to life.
Well, one thing I wanted to kind of get into too is just, it seems like you were talking about the views on this trip, but specifically some of the ballparks you're going to see. I know Salt Lake Bees today have already talked a little trash, saying you're going to see the best view in baseball today. You said you had it in Ogden before that. Where exactly are these parks situated? As you're going through the mountains of the some of these states.
Honestly, I don't know the geography in and out. I just kind of drive, show up, and I'm like, wow, this is what it looks like. I'm just always trying to keep my head above water on these trips, so I often don't have the greatest sense of where I fall in the greater landscape. Every environment has been pretty scenic, on this trip so far, but it really is, culminating here with these teams in Utah. Ogden last night, there's 3 mountains, just enveloping the ballpark. They feel like they're looming right over the ballpark. I believe that's the Wasatch Mountain Range, and there's 3 different mountains. One of them, the one on the left field side, is allegedly the inspiration for the Paramount Studios logo.
Yeah, that was an interesting
But at any rate, yeah, it's Ben Lomond Mountain, and I'm not sure of the history there, but apparently, an Ogden native, pitched that the Paramount Studios logo, and he was from Ogden and kind of, used that as his inspiration. It's one of those stories that's maybe not 100% confirmed, but if you look at it, you're like, hey, why not? That could be the Paramount Mountain logo. And but it's such a striking environment. And then heading on to Salt Lake Beach tonight, which is again going to be right there in the mountains, and then Orem as well, right in the mountains. So, beautiful landscapes throughout the Pioneer League and beautiful drives from place to place. But it's here in Utah where you're really struck immediately by the beauty of it. So I really enjoyed that in Ogden last night, and looking forward to it tonight in Salt Lake and tomorrow in Orem.
One of the things that you probably more than anybody in the country knows is that each minor league sort of has its own feel, sort of has its own identity, and the leagues in the Southeast are different from the leagues in the Midwest and those types of things. In the Pioneer League, what would you say stands out? I mean, they're small ballparks, they're in small towns for the most part, and smaller crowds from market to market comparatively, just because the ballparks are smaller. What kind of feels like it's the identity of the Pioneer League compared to maybe some of the other rookie level or short season leagues you've been to?
Well, I did that trip last year that was the entirety of the Appalachian League, so I think that's the most comparable example, obviously, in terms of the market sizes and in terms of the level of play. In a sense, I found that the Appalachian League was maybe even more down home and even more community-oriented and not many employees and all that. But the Pioneer League certainly has that as well. I started in Missoula. No, I did not. I started in Billings, and that's what I meant to say. It's hard to keep track of myself here. But they have a park that opened just in 2008 with a 360-degree concourse, and it's kind of like the Greenville Astros of the Pioneer League, where there's kind of a more modern environment. But that also means it didn't have as much personality. And, Missoula is another newer ballpark and a great environment, but, a newer one. But Great Falls and Helena, really older ballparks. And being in Helena, actually on the first home game after it became official that they're losing their team after the 2018 season, was, made me think like, wow, I'm really glad that I'm getting here when I have the chance. And I would recommend anyone, I don't know where you're listening to this, listeners, but if you can get to Helena, Montana this season or next season to see a Brewers game, I would really recommend it. It's a wooden grandstand. It's a, kind of a beat up old ballpark, but the kind of environment that once it's gone, it's not going to come back. And really enjoyed getting to know the fans there and seeing how the front office operates, and really just a sense of Americana and a throwback feel that I just found really warm and kind of touching just to be around. And sad that it's no longer going to be there. I mean, I kind of understand why, but that doesn't make it any harder for the people that love a team like that. So Helena, I think, was probably the highlight of this trip so far.
And one last one I wanted to touch on with you, Ben, was you're going to Salt Lake tonight, or you're going to see the Bees tonight. A lot of the teams we've talked about, pretty much every team we've talked about has been rookie level. Then you're jumping straight to AAA. Is there any kind of whiplash when that happens, when you're going from a rookie level park to a AAA park like that and back to a rookie level park in Orem where you're finishing the trip?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, as I said, last year I did like an all Appalachian League trip, and this year this trip has been mostly Pioneer League. But a lot of the trips I have done, have been just in a region where you do see that jump from league to league and level of play to level of play from night to night, and it can be jarring. I think of being in North Carolina and seeing Durham Bulls, and also being able to see like the Burlington Club in the Appy League, the Royals, and, have those in such close proximity to each other, yet such different environments. So I don't know what tonight's going to be like, but I'm seeing the Bees, so whatever. It is after 6 Pioneer League teams, it probably will be a little bit of whiplash to now all of a sudden be at the highest level of play in a stadium that probably seats, a good 3 to 4 times as many people as some of these Pioneer League environments I've been in. It will be whiplash. It will be disorienting, but I'm a professional, and I'm going to get
He
through
is
it.
Benjamin Hill. You can find him on Twitter at Ben's Biz, and you can check out the blog where, by the way, the groundbreaking subversive ballpark jokes of the day have returned despite the demise of Vine, and I'm very happy about that. That's bensbiz.mlblogs.com. Smith's Ballpark tonight in Salt Lake, and all the best of the Pioneer League in your one stop on the PCL, Ben. I hope the last couple of days out in America's favorite and most forgotten time zone treat you very well.
Yeah, it's great to be in the Mountain Time Zone. Much respect to everyone who lives here because it's very easy to forget about. But here in the Mountain Time Zone, good people, good views. Tyler, keep fighting the good fight. And yes, please, I already got blog posts up on Ben's Biz blog. There's going to be a lot more where that came from on the blog, a lot more articles on MILB.com all through July. You can read about this trip, and I hope you do. I appreciate every single person that does, and I mean that. And I'm, I don't know. Maybe it's just being on the road. I'm getting very emotional right now. But thank you for reading my stuff. Thank you for talking to me. Yeah, very sentimental. Maybe it's a Mountain Time Zone thing.
It is.
But thank you. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone who engages with my stuff. And I look forward to talking to you from New York City next week, where I'll be much colder and more cynical.
Big thanks to Luis Rojas and Benjamin Hill for joining episode number 116 of the show before the show. Ben will be back in town in New York next week, as he said, and that will just about do it for this week's episode. There was a promotion in the minor leagues that you may have heard about this week that we forgot to address in our first segment, so we'll address it here before we get out of here. One, Timothy Richard Tebow was promoted from the Class A Columbia Fireflies to the Class A Advanced St. Lucie Mets, the New York Mets organization. Not going to spend a ton of time on this, but Sam obviously was a big news item. In your mind, one sentence to describe this promotion.
He needed to be tested, and given his age, he needed to be tested, and he's going to be tested in an offensive-starved Florida State League. I wanted to put a seconds on there.
Go for it.
Just very quickly. Obviously, it's great for business that Tim Tebow is back in Florida. So there you go. There's a second sentence.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I would have said. I would have said something along the lines of, he's 29, and 29-year-olds need to prove more to an organization than batting in the 220s in the South Atlantic League, semicolon, also he makes teams a lot of money, period.
This would have definitely been a lot more fun if we had done haikus, I think.
That would have been good. Maybe next time. Maybe next time we talk about a promotion in short order. What are you watching this week on MILB.TV?
Yeah, so I've been waiting to feature one of these games for a while just because it's such a foreign concept to us. There's an actual Florida State League game on MILB.TV now. The Bradenton Marauders have an MILB.TV set up, so get your chance to watch them. I mean, if you are a fan of a Florida State League team or have a major league team that has an affiliate in the FSL, try to find out when they will be in Bradenton. You'll be able to watch them on your computer. So if you're, a St. Lucie Mets fan or a Tebow fan, that'll be your chance as well. But the St. Lucie Mets are not in Bradenton this weekend. The matchup I'm looking at is this Friday. The Florida Fire Frogs will be in Bradenton. I picked Friday specifically because Touki Toussaint will be taking the mound for the Fire Frogs. I think he's somebody that a lot of people using, your regular stats, think he's not having that great a year. 5.72 ERA is certainly going to point you in that direction. The 2-8 record, win-loss record, is going to point in that direction as well. But let me just point out that he has a 3.87 FIP. So there is a lot of funkiness going on with his numbers. A 3.87 FIP is pretty solid. I think that we would all think he's continuing on his road of development if that was his ERA. He's averaging almost 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, striking out 24.4% of batters faced. So that fastball and wicked curveball combination is still on from him. You always want to see that curveball whenever you get a chance. So not only him, but he's going up against Pirates first rounder from last year, Will Craig, who has really turned it on here in June. He's batting .347 with a .953 OPS in 20 games in June for Bradenton. That should be a fun matchup. A couple other, guys on the Fire Frogs and the Marauders to watch in that game. But in terms of an FSL MILB.TV game, this is about as good as one as you're going to find. So take the opportunity when you have
I'm
it.
going to go to the AA Eastern League in the Cleveland Indians organization, where Bobby Bradley, the first base prospect, has started to crush the ball as of late. The month of June, fantastic for him. A 301, 389, 614 slash line. He had 7 homers going into June. He hit 7 homers in June. He drove home 22 runs in the month of June. He and the AA Akron Rubber Ducks will take on the Erie Seawolves on Thursday, and then they will host the Bowie Bay Sox over the weekend, so you can check those games out from beautiful Canal Park in Akron, Ohio on MILB.TV. And that'll do it for episode number 116 of the Show Before the Show podcast. Again, you can find us on iTunes, the Stitcher app, and now on Google Play, and you can give us a rating and a review and a subscription. You can get in touch with the show, podcast at MILB.com. Sam's on Twitter. He's at Sam Dykstra, MILB, and I am at Tyler Mon. For Sam, I'm Tyler. We'll talk to you next week.